Flutter CTO survey interviews, powered by LeanCode. Let's build great apps together.
Hello and welcome everyone to our interview today with Viktor, founder of Serverpod. We are here meeting directly before FlutterCon, one of the biggest conferences in Flutter universe, but also before the release of Flutter CTO survey. And Viktor was so kind to partner with us for our report. And today we're meeting to discuss his story in this Flutter universe. How come he started actually working for Google? What's his further entrepreneurial story, and what is keeping him busy right now? So, Viktor, hello again, and welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. So I'm Viktor. I used to work on the Flutter team. Now I'm the founder of Serverpod, and we made a backend for Flutter specifically, written in Dart. It's all open source, free to try out. So that's the super short version of who I am.
Right, and we'll go definitely deeper into details. So thank you for being with us today. So Viktor, tell me very briefly, how have you started your adventure with Flutter? How did it all start with you working backwards for Google in the Flutter team?
Right. So I actually worked many years as a game developer, and in that space, before I joined Google, I worked for a startup in San Francisco on a developer tool for building mobile games. Unfortunately, that startup ran out of money and they sold me to Google, where I ended up on the Flutter team. So,
all right.
So you're actually ended up there.
All right. So you've started by developing the framework for games, and then transferred towards developing the framework for the whole cross-platform development, right?
Right. Yeah, that's actually what happened. So I guess it's a pretty good experience because a lot of the stuff you do in games a game is basically an app, but in games you may have more of a focus on performance and sort of another subset of features, app features, if you will,
right.
That I think still are super important, and it looks like Flutter is doing pretty good strides in that area as well. I think can have a pretty good future as a game development tool too in the future.
All right. That's indeed what's happening right now with Flutter, isn't it? Right. And so it's fair to say that for the big part of your professional life or your career, you've been developing different frameworks. What made you believe in Flutter, in Dart, actually, as a backbone for the Flutter apps? What made you believe in developing Serverpod, so the backend solution in Dart?
So for Flutter, that's the team I ended up on at Google, but I instantly fell in love with Dart. I think it's a great language, and it has such a bigger potential than just being a language for Flutter, I think, because it's a great language. It has so many of the modern features, like the type safety, null safety, really nice closures. The way you handle a synchronous program is also very intuitive and easy to work with, compared to maybe working with threads in Java can be very, very complex. So I think it's an area of Dart, like the backend part is really, I think more of the Flutter developers should definitely look into that side of Dart, because it's really, really pleasant to work with. So my journey into creating Serverpod is actually I ran another startup before, and we built a news app, and obviously used Flutter for doing that, and that was a great experience. But what wasn't so great was building the backend for it. So that's really where my journey into Serverpod began in terms of the idea for building a backend in Dart. And I figured, if I wanted that really bad, probably it's the same for many of the Flutter developers out there.
Right, definitely. And like the Serverpod is indeed a great solution for building the backend in Dart for the Flutter apps, but not only, perhaps, I assume. Serverpod has recently also acquired a fund from Pre-Seed Venture, the Danish venture capital firm, for 1.7 million euros, if I'm not mistaken. What is your business model, if you can elaborate briefly on that? Because since you have investors on board right now, so I figured that it's not only the open source that originally doesn't give any profit, but you have some idea for the business model here.
Yeah, of course. So I think for a framework like Serverpod, the only really viable model is to have it open source. Most of the bigger development frameworks are actually open source, especially in the Dart space. Even distribution is pretty hard if you do it as closed source. So we want it to be as open as possible. And I mean, it's great not just for developers it builds, gives you confidence that you can use the product even if the company would go bankrupt or something like that, and gives you freedom to host your server anywhere. That being said, what we are building for Serverpod, that will be sort of our proprietary business model, is something we call Serverpod Cloud, which will make it very, very easy to deploy your server to the cloud. And we take care of everything from load balancing, handling your database, caching, inter-server communication, all these things that are typically quite a bit of work to set up. That being said, for Serverpod, we actually made Terraform scripts that will help you if you want to host it yourself on Google Cloud or AWS, or you can host Serverpod pretty much anywhere you can run Dart. So, I mean, you can host your Serverpod in your basement if you want. And I think that's a really cool both model and when we pitch it to investors, obviously the hosting is something almost all backend users will pay for one way or another. So regardless if you pay Google Cloud, if you pay AWS, you will pay for it. And what's really cool with this model is that we can build it at scale. So if you set your own infrastructure on Google Cloud, for instance, you'll need a load balancer, you need a database, and a bunch of different services that will cost a fair bit of money. I mean, if you're just starting out, the minimum is probably around $35. Well, we can host 1,000 developers or 1,000 apps on one load balancer, so we don't have that overhead. And the same with the database and everything. So we can make it like the initial cost being actually lower than if you would host it yourself on AWS or Google Cloud. So I think that would be a very cool selling point. Plus, it will take like one command on your terminal to deploy your server.
I got it. So it's not only about simplification and making those developers really full stack developers and enabling them to handle both the front and the back end development, but also infrastructure, right? So your value chain extends towards DevOps and taking off that burden from their shoulders.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not that hard to set it up, but there is definitely a cost to maintaining things. In terms of the time it takes, but also having someone that done it really thoroughly gives you some confidence. I think at least the first time I set up a whole infrastructure, it's very hard to know you do everything right. And it's very important you get it right, so you don't like have any security leaks or anything like that.
Great. And I believe since you have already acquired the founding round, you already have substantial traction and a bunch of users exploring Serverpod and its abilities. So with this set of features, with this set of values that you're presenting towards end users, to whom, in your opinion, is your product, your framework most appealing to? I mean, based on the set of clients you're currently serving, what's your target group?
Right. So we both have a fair bit of sort of independent developers, obviously, that are trying out Serverpod. I should say there are over 1,000 apps being built on Serverpod right now, so it's starting to gaining some serious traction, which is very, very cool. We're very happy about that.
That's already an impressive milestone. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's a big milestone. We've been working hard to get there. But yeah, we're also, I think, a major sort of customer for us is development agencies. So we have quite a few of those as well. They build apps for the clients. The type of developers we're primarily targeting are obviously people who are starting a new app because they don't already have a backend. It's a bigger cost if you already got started with something else to make that switch. Although we have developers that are doing that too, because it's I think Serverpod better suits the needs in many cases, and can also be worth unifying sort of the experience for your developers. Even if one of the biggest benefits is you can use Dart across the stack, so you can use the same developers for front end and back end. So I think that is something we see too. But the big ones are these agencies or smaller developers right now. But as we grow, I think we're going to get many larger organizations into Serverpod as well, because it's a really nice solution if you're building a Flutter app.
Right, for sure. Indeed, there's this benefit of having one developer working in Dart and being able to work on all sides of the project and to unify this development experience, as you've mentioned right now. Have you indeed observed that already some bigger teams are experimenting with Serverpod and, for example, engaging you to build some microservices? I mean, your framework, basically, right? And establish some additional services using Serverpod?
Yes, yeah, we definitely have some bigger teams working with Serverpod as well. I'm not sure I can give any names yet. I mean, many are a little bit on in
Of
stealth
course.
mode,
So we will wait
want
for
us
new case
to talk
studies,
about them,
right?
even though we know that they're using
Right.
us. But
Right.
and there's also a lot of them we can see they're building something, but obviously we don't collect any statistics on what people are building. We're not spying on our users. So the ones we know are the ones that reach out to us, and either to showcase, just tell us what they built, or in many cases they're asking for advice on how to build whatever they're building, or if it can be done with Serverpod, or specific questions. So we try to stay on top on that, and we can really see, like, we have a community on GitHub with a discussion group and issues, and that has also been really exploding over the past months. So we get a lot of questions there. Also, a lot of them answer each other's questions, which is so great. And we got quite a bit of contributions from the community as well, which really, really helps us out in making sure everything is stable. And yeah, the smaller features that we haven't built ourselves, people fix them for us. Or if there's something, that annoys people, they can also fix it themselves, which is pretty cool with open source.
Right. That's a great advantage of open source community,
Yeah.
right? Yes. Especially with the communities of the size of yours, like with already the impressive number of 1,000 users, you already can count on their involvement, but also you can definitely count on their feedback. And speaking about the feedback, what are currently the challenges you are facing with Serverpod? What are the next big milestones you want to achieve?
I think the biggest next milestone is definitely Serverpod Cloud and getting that down. We've been working on that for the past 5-6 months and made some significant progress, so we can deploy our own code now. But also need to be able to make it accessible to everyone, build nice, command line tools, make it easy to hook up your database and manage that. So there are a few challenges there, but we are, moving forward pretty quickly on that. And that's definitely the biggest new feature. But we're also looking into a bunch of other updates to the framework. We are pretty much starting with making sure the foundation is super solid. I mean, it's already solid and everything is working and tested. We have over 3,000 tests in Serverpod to make sure everything works and we don't break anything. But there are some APIs we want to refine and make easier. Something we're working on now that I'm going to showcase on FlutterCon is how you can stream data. So we are remaking that interface to make that a much smoother experience. Also maintaining backwards compatibility. So we've made a few breaking changes for Serverpod 2 about a month ago, but we made sure we made all the changes that we need to build features over the coming years, so we don't break anything, but we can build on top of Serverpod 2. And there were a few things that we needed to fix there when it comes to making it a little bit more flexible for authentication, for instance. And most of those changes are to features that very few users probably use, I would guess. But and for them, it's just a few lines of code that they need to change. But I'm really excited about the coming year because we have a lot in the pipeline, both in terms of updating the framework and also expanding our team. So right now we are 4 full-time working on Serverpod. From August we will be 7. So that's also very exciting, obviously.
Right, that's already quite a team to manage, right?
Yeah. We all the developers we have actually all members on the team are developers right now. So we're 7 developers, and I mean everyone are very very senior. So we've only hired like the top of the crop for developers. So I'm really excited to see where this will take us over the next year for sure. I mean, we've been working 3 people, soon we'll be 7. So
yes, it's more than doubling the size, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So
yes.
It will be even more time consuming for you to manage all that team. Speaking about that, because you are an entrepreneur of the company that already have investors, so expectations are also huge, as I can imagine. You're extending your team, and still you find the time to build communities. Recently, you founded a new conference, Full Stack Flutter conference. We are still engaged with engaging with Flutter Stockholm meetup, a very also vivid community of local Flutter developers. How do you find the time for all those activities?
Yeah,
Tell
I
us.
think for
That's
me
also
it's all ties
the thing
together.
that
So
I'm personally really interested in.
I mean, obviously, hosting the Full Stack Flutter conference was so much more work than I thought it would be, but it turned out awesome. We had over 4,000 people participating, so that I think was a huge win. But also something I felt was missing in the Flutter community. Hasn't been any other really good online conference for Flutter, and we really took time to find the best speakers out there. We were 4 people on the forum that formerly worked on the Flutter team. We got 2 speakers from the Flutter team itself, plus a total of 40 top speakers. So that's definitely something we want to do again next year. But yeah, it does take a lot of time and a lot of work. I used to have time to code at Serverpod. Now, not so much. It's more managing everything. I also do the developer relations, so I sort of moved into developer relations, but we have 2 great team leaders on both the cloud and the platform. So that's still moving on at like really fast speed. So I think that's just the way it has to go at some point when you start a business. Your role
Yes.
kind of changes, and it takes a lot of time to manage all stuff, and obviously to build communities. But that's I see it as building a strong Flutter community also makes more people aware on Dart on the back end. We brought in like all our all other projects working with Dart on the back end. So that's really cool. There are talks from Celeste, Dart Frog, and a few others, Pharaoh. So I think the bigger we grow the market, it's great for everyone in that field.
Right, definitely. And that's also the spirit we totally share with you, because for example, our Flutter CTO survey, that's exactly the same goal, that we want to bring new evidence to the Flutter community that the Flutter is indeed a worth recommending framework. And it's important for all of us that the user base grows, and that we can all build new great products for this community, and all those variety of tools that simply enhance developers' experience, right? So we definitely share that spirit, and we also need to link to our interview, and by the time of publishing, this should be already available, the link to your talk from FlutterCon, where you will unveil those new announcements from Serverpod. So I definitely keep fingers crossed for you and your stage performance during FlutterCon. We will see you there in person, and to all our viewers, I can just highly recommend that talk, which Viktor will be giving during FlutterCon, and also I can recommend that you can explore the findings in the Flutter CTO report that we are publishing together, that we hope will bring a lot of evidence for those who are still hesitating whether to explore the Dart and Flutter universe, and whether to decide on that. So I think the report will give you a lot of valuable data to support that thesis and to support that decision. Okay, Viktor, it was great having you here, and great having this interview. I definitely keep my fingers crossed for Serverpod and for you changing the life of developers who can become really full stack developers and take care of both front end and the back end side with Dart. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And very cool what you're doing with the survey too. Looking forward to seeing it.
Great. Thank you. And cheers to our audience. Bye.
Bye.
Build your next project with us. Schedule a free 30 minutes consultation.